is going on, everybody? It is your guy, Retro Lag. Welcome back to Bleep Bloop. All right, so this episode, I'm happy to do my top 10 favorite games. Now, everybody has a top 10. Sometimes we want to know, what are the top 10 games out there? And do we agree with those top 10 games? Sometimes we might want to know, why did some people think that this game was in the top 10 when it wasn't in my top 10? So I think a top 10 is always subjective, right? A lot of critics, a lot of review sites, YouTube channels will take the general consensus of the particular games, and that's how they develop them. Some base them off sales, some base them off popularity. Just because something was popular doesn't mean it equates to a lot of sales, but typically it does. Typically they're hand in hand. But for me, my top 10 was strictly about my top 10. Now, you might not like these games. You might like them. There might be one or two you've never even heard of or even played. That is fine. But this is my top 10. So they're in no particular order, right? I mean, I could probably list them, but we're just gonna go down the list in the way that I put them, that I listed them out. Okay, they're in no particular order. But the first game on my list that is definitely gonna make my top 10 is Red Dead Redemption 2. Now, I don't feel the same way about Red Dead Redemption 1, but I absolutely feel like Red Dead Redemption 1 is not on my top 10 list because I enjoyed the game and I loved that it was something different from Rockstar. Was it Rockstar? Whoever made GTA, man, I forget at this point. It's early in the morning. But in any case, it was something different from the developers that made the GTA series, right? Is it Rockstar North or something? You know what? I'm going to Google it because Rockstar Games, right? Yeah, Rockstar Games. That's who it is. Okay, yeah, I was right. See, man, I'm all over the place. But it was something different. You know, the gameplay was fun. You're out in the Wild West in the desert. You can go to these old Western towns, and you could do a lot of the same stuff that you could do in GTA, but it was in a Western format, right? Well, when so much time had passed that when Red Dead Redemption 2 came out, you got new platforms, new consoles to play on, better graphics. They really understood how to utilize the game mechanics and environments that made GTA 4 and 5 in particularly so big, and utilize those same lessons learned in the development of Red Dead Redemption 2. The story was so engaging. You wanted to know so much about the characters. I mean, I was so absorbed by the story that by the end of it, you know, it has you emotional. It makes you emotional. Arthur Morgan, you know, Dutch, all of the gang, you know, Micah, John Marston, the environments. I mean, all the places you can go, you know, way down in the desert valleys, all the way up to the snowy mountain caps, all the little towns. And I didn't even do any side missions. I literally did just the main story. So there's still so much of that game that I could tap into, that it's always gonna make my top 10 list. It just absolutely is. And I would say that it is a close number 1, if not 2 or 3, maybe the top 4. because they're the 1 through 4 are all games that are very much like always going back and forth with each other. But Red Dead Redemption 2 is absolutely one of my favorites. Another game on my top 10 list. Number 2. Ghost Recon Wildlands. Now, when this game came out, I didn't specifically say, I wasn't like sitting there, oh, I gotta play this game when it comes out. Like, I saw it. I saw a couple of trailers. I was like, that looks cool. That looks like it'll be fun. But I thought that it was going to be similar to like an old Rainbow Six game or like the old Ghost Recon games where there's like futuristic tech. But then what made me really want to dive into it was when I started seeing gameplay of it and I saw how open the map was. You're in South America, like basically a South American environment. Not actual South America. And you're fighting a cartel essentially. You got your team, you know, and you can go around and do stealth missions. It's open world. You can get in vehicles, ride bikes, get airplanes, get helicopters, boats. You can, you know, there's a dynamic weather system. You know, your team, your AI team know how to move and traverse. There's conversation that is had when you're walking or driving from point A to point B. You can take as much time as you want to take down one outpost, or you can run and gun into something. You can stealth kill. You can move in and out. And even when you get the main story done, you can still take down all the cartel. Then they had a multiplayer mode where you can dive in with other people and do challenges. And the customization of your weapons, your character. Ghost Recon Wildlands is such an amazing game. And it's one of those games that just people slept on. Like, people that played it know that was a dope game. And I've seen this game make lists. So I know this is a great game. But it is an absolutely great game. The story was fun. I will say there were some snatch and grab missions that were repetitive in nature. Grab the person, take them to the outpost, to the outpost. They get interrogated, and then the story goes to the next mission. But excuse me. But that's what a lot of these games are. Snatch and grabs, and you know, it is what it is. And it just keeps going. But as you keep diving in, you keep learning more about the story, and it does capture you, and you get absorbed into it, and it's still one of my games that I'll go back and just dive back into and still keep playing. So Ghost Recon Wildlands, always going to be at the top of my list. Celeste was a game that I don't even know how I got interested in it, honestly. I think I saw somebody playing it, or I saw it on like Games Done Quick. I honestly do not remember how I found this game. All I know was I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to check that out. And it had that pixel art style that I like, which always reminds me of retro games. And then I started playing it, and the platforming, and then the speed running, and then the abilities, and then the endless amounts of dying that were so rage inducing. Yet when you accomplish that section after dying 30 times in a row was so fulfilling and so gratifying that it made you want to keep playing more. Then when I see people speed run it and watch how fast they can go and understand what it takes to be that proficient in certain levels, just made me appreciate it that much more. The music was amazing. I mean, the musical director and composer of the soundtrack, I went and listened to the soundtrack numerous times. And this was one of the first games that I played on stream on Twitch ever. It was this and Ghost Recon Wildlands. Those were like the first two real, and Monster Hunter World. I did play that a lot. Those were like the main games I played. I tried to play other games, but those were my top three for a while. But Celeste was one of the first games that I, quote, finished. I didn't 100% it at all, but I did finish the story at least. But it was just so good, man. It was such a good game, and it made me appreciate indie games that might not always be recognized, but are just as powerful as AAA titles. And this leads me to my next game on my list. Oh, excuse me, my nose is itchy. And that's Blasphemous. Now, when I was a streamer, I used to, and I say when I was, because I don't stream a lot anymore. I do occasionally, but I do very different things, when I stream. I'll do shows, I'll DJ, I'll play games. It just depends, right? But I do more content, just podcast videos and stuff like that, than I actually do streaming. When I was an active streamer, every day, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, 7 days a week, 4 to 5 hours at a time, Blasphemous was a game that I discovered as part of a series I did called Haunttober. And I would pick 5 to 6 horror games to try to play. And I was never a huge fan of horror games. It's because, the whole jump scare aspect of it. I mean, I like scary movies, but scary games are just, I don't know. It was like a whole nother element. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to play these, but I'm going to do my own spin on this. Instead of playing the popular AAA titles that everybody's playing, I'm going to play indie titles. And Blasphemous was one that I found. When I dove into it, the best way to describe it is a 2D Souls, like Dark Souls game. Because when you die, and you will die a lot. And the enemies are vicious in their attacks and their abilities. But the platforming is amazing. The skill trees are amazing. The abilities that you learn are amazing. The music is amazing. The studio that developed it is amazing. And when I've created content for it, it's been some of my higher viewed content. And it's just a fun game. I mean, it is such a fun game. A lot of people try to play it, and I will tell you, like, if you're not a fan of like the Souls type games, this isn't the game for you, because it is just as challenging as those. Those are that third person perspective, but this is that 2D side scrolling perspective, pixel art and pixel graphics, and you might not think that would be interesting, but it absolutely was. And that's why it's on my top 10 list, and it's in my top 5, top 4 for sure, hands down. It is my number 1 favorite Metroidvania. Absolutely. Moving on, this next game, we're going to talk about a few older games. This next game, when I was deployed, I used to work the night shift. So when I would get off at like either 6 in the morning or 9 in the morning. I think it was 6. That's when the morning shift would come in. I would go get my breakfast, eat breakfast, I'd go to the gym, one of the two, either flip-flop that. But then I'd go back to my room. And when I'd go back to my room, I had my PlayStation 3. And I would sit down, put my blanket over me so I'd stay warm because it was chilly. Turn on the PlayStation and boot up the OG Assassin's Creed. Now, some will say the stories were better in Assassin's Creed 2 and 3 and so on, and I won't disagree with that. I didn't dive into them the way I did with this one. But I would sit there for hours on end, even after working a 12-hour shift, knowing I gotta go to sleep, and I'm just enthralled with the gameplay, just being able to go walk up to somebody and just assassinate them with a blade that shoots up out of my wrist, and just walk around and parkour elements, and then the story itself. It was so engaging to me, and it was such an escape from what my reality at that time was, which I'm in a third world country. There's mortar fire incoming to the base. There's IEDs that we gotta avoid. 24-hour operations, alerts, walking around with your M4, magazine ready to go in case somebody tries to overrun the base. Like, you're always at a heightened sense of alert because there's no sense of security. So to be able to play this game was like such an escape for me that I will always appreciate this game. Assassin's Creed will always be one of my favorite games. Now it would be nice if maybe they did a remake, a remaster, and beef it up a little bit, add some more content, spruce up the story. But even if they don't, this is still a classic to me. The next classic is the OG God of War. Number 1, the first one. I played 2 and 3, but the first one it was ahead of its time. Like, graphically, it was amazing. The story was sick. The character Kratos and his abilities were just fire. To be able to fight these big gods and you're this small dude, but it's so rage-filled and powerful was amazing. And when I played it, this was PlayStation 2. I remember PlayStation 2, if I'm not mistaken, that's when it came out. That's when I played it. I played it on PlayStation 2. And I would sit at my mother-in-law's house and just for hours just playing that game. And I just loved it. It was like nothing else I had played. And it was one of the first games that I really sat down and tried to complete. Because a lot of games I don't complete. Which was the episode before this. Why I don't finish games. So go check that out, all right? On the Bleep Bloop podcast. But yeah, OG God of War was great as well, and that'll be on my list for sure. This ties into another game that actually was therapeutic for me in my military career because it was in between deployments and it was around when I was really engrossed with military culture and lifestyle, and I wanted to embody being an elite soldier, and that was Modern Warfare. Like, when I played that game and the parallel that it created with what was going on in the world, multiple deployments, soldiers in Afghanistan and Iraq, and soldiers coming home, and the missions and the chaos these were things that I was experiencing in deployments. But to sit there and escape that and be able to play this game where anything can happen, it was just so fun. I mean, I had so much fun playing that game, completed the story, and I played 1, 2, and 3. The first one was always the best one to me because the things you did in that game, the missions that you ran, the storyline itself was amazing, was absolutely amazing. So OG God of War, OG Assassin's Creed, OG Modern Warfare, classic games for me that I will always appreciate. Another game that I enjoyed and had to make this list because of the connection it draws for not just me with gaming, but also with me and my kids, is Minecraft. Minecraft was another game that when I was deep into streaming and was on my way out the door of the military, was a game that I was always playing. I would play it on stream on Mondays. Mondays was either Metroidvanias, Minecraft, or like I had other genres, but those were like the main genres I dived into. But I just everything from just crafting, and then I would play one of the mods I played was Septec Ages, and I loved it because it was given as a noob to Minecraft. That was the Minecraft I knew. Like, you had to craft everything from scratch instead of just do this and it'll give you this. Like, no, you had to do stuff from scratch, and it made it that much more challenging until the mod, something happened with it and it was affecting my game. There were no mobs anywhere. So, but I still went back to Minecraft, and I still got, my worlds created, got houses and bases that I built, and it's cool to just see my kids playing it, and they're such wizards on it, and I'm still just a vanilla noob, that's forever my name, vanilla noob, trademark. Moving along, we got 3 more games on this list. One that I found just because I was interested in it was a game called Ape Out, and I did a review on my YouTube channel, Retro Retro Plays Games, a game review series called Levels, and that's Ape Out. Ape Out is dope. You're this ape and you escape. But it's a top-down perspective, but there's no detailed, intricate lines on your character, no facial expression. It's just the body and the movements. But you combine that with the art direction and the art design of the levels, and then the music that builds up as you traverse and progress through the game. And then you can play the B side as well as the A side, and each level is different perspectives. It was just a fun game. It was so fun. I had so much fun when I played that game. I loved everything about it. I think more developers need to do stuff like that. Just create a different feel. It doesn't have to be long, doesn't have to be super intricate. I mean, the game starts, you press start, and boom, you're in a cage. Bam, you knock your way out the cage and you go, and that's it. And that's how it starts. And that was really, really cool. Ape Out was another game that was an indie that a lot of people slept on, but is a fun game. Last two on the list, these are by no means like number 9 or number 10 or number 1 or number 2, nothing like that. These are just games that I enjoyed. One of the best stories ever that I've played, Last of Us. I mean, and most people know, if you've played this game, you already know what it is. Everything from the clickers to Ellie and Joel, I think that was the name. I've only played it once, but I played the whole game though. I played through the whole game. The environments, the story, the music, the characters, the enemies. It just, so much of that game just was fun. And that was also at a time when I was streaming a lot, and that was one of my main games. And I was trying to finish games. I'm gonna play something, I'm gonna finish it. I finished it, and it was good, man. It brought, didn't bring tears in my eyes, but it was an emotional story, which ties into my last game on my list, and that's Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Now, I could have said the Tomb Raider trilogy because they were all good, and I played them all back to back to back. But Shadow of the Tomb Raider was my favorite because it closed out the trilogy. The environments were so engaging. Graphically was amazing. I love that version of Lara Croft, and the epicness of the story. Where you go, the settings, the over-the-top imagination that went into it with the storytelling. It just was, it was a fun time. It was a fun experience, and that was another series that when I was in the middle of my streaming, that I was finishing those games. I was like, I'm gonna play these games. I remember one day I sat and I played one of the Tomb Raiders for like 6-7 hours. I mean, I did the same thing with Wolfenstein, which is an honorable mention. I played those. I sat one day for like 6 to 8 hours and just played through the game. Was determined to get through as much of that game as possible. But Shadow of the Tomb Raider was another game that I'll always remember and appreciate and enjoy. And, that's my top 10 favorite games. Now, there are games that will come through that I'm hoping will replace some of these, but these I feel like are a strong top 10 for me because I can recollect specific memories that are associated with them. And that's what I feel like represents a favorite. It's not, to me, I feel like a favorite is not like, I love that game. That game was dope. But then another game replaces it. And before you know, you got a list of like 20, 30 games. And I'm sure, your list will be that long, if not longer. Like, there are just great games that you're gonna love, but your top 10 are those games. For me, my top 10 are those games that I can look back and have specific memories of, or why they were my favorite. What was the association? What was the parallel? So, maybe the top 10 list will change. Maybe it'll be my top 20. I don't know. Maybe next time we'll put them in order. All right. Until the next video, y'all, make sure you like and subscribe, or make sure you subscribe to the podcast. If you're a patron, you have early access to this podcast episode, and if there is a video that I decide to create, well, you'll have exclusive access to it before the rest of the world. And if you're listening to this by the time it came out into the public, I want to say thank you for listening to the Bleep Bloop podcast. And like I always say on everything I do, until next time, y'all, peace.